He awoke to the cold, not the dank, clammy chill that slithered like a snake at night through the cracks in the dilapidated windows of Bogota's poor quarters, piercing to the very bone and forcing one to wrap oneself in a thin blanket. This was a different, internal cold, born somewhere deep in the bone marrow, ringing in the very bones and freezing the blood in his veins with an icy, mathematical precision. His name was Matteo, and the first thing his slowly, painfully returning consciousness registered was a deafening, absolute, vibrating emptiness. Emptiness where, just last evening, illuminated by a soft LED light, his 65-inch plasma screen had hung. His pride, his trophy, bought after half a year of grueling, back-breaking overtime work at a construction site where he, an engineer, had toiled under the scorching sun. Emptiness on the massive oak table where just yesterday a powerful gaming laptop and the latest model console had lain, his personal portals to other, brighter and more just worlds, his only escape from the grey, suffocating routine and loneliness. Emptiness on his own wrist where his heavy steel watch should have been. The last gift from his late father, a relic he never took off for a second, feeling its familiar weight like the unseen, warm presence of a loved one beside him. The apartment hadn't just been robbed, it had been cleaned out. Methodically, coldly, dispassionately. As if with a surgical scalpel, everything of value, everything that held any meaning, had been removed from it, without leaving a single scratch on the lacquered parquet, not a single print from a dirty boot, not a single trace of panic or haste. It was as if he himself, Matteo, had directed this methodical, calm and merciless process of extracting his own life piece by piece. But he couldn't remember a single frame of this terrible, silent film. In his head there was only a black, echoing hole. Everything inside him clenched with an icy, nauseating premonition, rising as a viscous, bitter lump from his stomach to his throat. Stumbling on stiff, cottony legs, he lunged for the phone, which by some miracle, by some inexplicable, mocking whim of fate, had been left charging by the bed. His fingers trembled, disobedient, cramped by a spasm, failing to hit the small, painfully familiar icon of the banking app. A second of agonizing waiting as the damned loading wheel spun on the screen felt to him like an eternity filled with the wail of sirens, and then a punch to the gut that knocked all the air from his lungs. Zero, an absolute, mocking, screaming zero in all his accounts. 10 years of hard, back-breaking work as an engineer, 10 years of savings, every peso set aside for the dream of his own small house outside the city with a tiny garden where he wanted to grow roses, had evaporated in a single night. But even this financial catastrophe was just the tip of the iceberg, beneath whose icy mass lurked a real, unimaginable horror. Panic, sharp and animalistic, gave way to a blood-curdling bewilderment bordering on madness. He meticulously, inch by inch, his nose almost touching the cold metal, examined the steel front door. The lock was intact, not a single scratch on the metal, no sign of a lockpick or brute force. The windows were tightly locked from the inside with all the latches, just as he did every evening, following the paranoid habit of a big city dweller. No signs of a break-in, no struggle, not the slightest hint of violence. The apartment was in perfect, almost sterile order, except for the absence of everything that had any value. He was alone in this empty concrete box, but he could distinctly feel on his skin someone's unseen, icy, mocking presence. Staggering like a drunk, clinging to the walls, he went downstairs to the concierge, a sleepy old man named Hector, whose watery, faded eyes had seen absolutely everything that had happened in this building for the last 30 years. Hector looked at Mateo's pale, horror-stricken face with genuine, sincere, almost paternal surprise. "Senor Mateo, but you carried everything out yourself. Late at night, you helped those two very polite young men load your huge television into a white van. You were even smiling, senor. Smiled, wished them a good night, and said that you were finally moving on to a better life." Mateo froze on the spot, the old man's words piercing him like shards of ice, freezing him from the inside. Smiling. He had personally helped the robbers carry out his own belongings, smiling. He didn't remember a single second of it. In his memory gaped a black, bottomless, pulsating hole 8 hours long. This wasn't alcohol-induced amnesia, not a memory lapse after a blow to the head. It was something else, something inhuman. As if someone had rented his body, used it like an obedient, will-less puppet, and carefully returned the empty, gutted shell to its place. And he was far from the only victim of this quiet, invisible, all-pervading horror. The name of this silent, invisible predator is hyoscine, or scopolamine. But on the streets of Colombia, in dark alleys and crowded bars, it is called something simpler and far more terrifying. El aliento del diablo, the devil's breath. It is not a drug in the usual sense of the word. It does not grant euphoria, does not carry you away to psychedelic worlds, does not relax or invigorate. It is not the goal, it is the instrument, a weapon. It does something far immeasurably worse. It erases free will, it annihilates personality, leaving the body on a perfect, obedient autopilot. It turns a person into a flesh and blood zombie, into a biological robot ready to carry out any command, no matter how absurd or self-destructive. Annually in Colombia alone, according to the most conservative, understated official data, up to 50,000 cases of scopolamine use for criminal purposes are registered. 50,000. That's more than 130 people a day. That's 5 broken, defiled lives every hour. 50,000 men and women from whom not just money or property was stolen, a part of their own life was stolen from them, leaving behind only a sticky, all-consuming paranoia, a caustic, soul-corroding shame, and a black, scorched gap in memory that will never be filled. But even these shocking statistics do not reflect the full picture, as the vast majority of victims never go to the police due to the deepest shame and a primal fear of reliving the humiliation by recounting how they themselves helped their tormentors. Scopolamine blocks the human brain's very ability to form new memories, while simultaneously suppressing the decision-making centers. It turns a person into an ideal, submissive puppet. The victim can carry on a coherent conversation, follow complex instructions, and appear completely normal from the outside, but their consciousness, their self, their soul, are temporarily disconnected, removed from the system. They exist in the moment, having neither a past nor a future, like a newborn infant in an adult's body. It is the perfect weapon for committing a crime. Why break down a door when the victim will open it themselves, smile, and invite you in? Why threaten with a weapon when the victim will dictate their credit card PIN and online banking passwords themselves, obligingly looking the criminal in the eye? Why use force when the victim will get into the kidnapper's car themselves and, with a vacant, blissful smile on their face, wave goodbye to any random witnesses? It is a crime in which the victim becomes the main accomplice. And the next day, they won't be able to identify the criminal, they won't be able to describe their face, because for their brain, That face simply didn't exist. They didn't remember the voice, the clothes, or any distinguishing features. The criminal is a ghost, a phantom who existed in physical reality but left no imprint on their victim's consciousness. The crime becomes practically unsolvable, turning into a perfect criminal storm. And this turns bustling, vibrant cities into silent hunting grounds for a new, previously unseen type of predator. This chemical substance erases the very line between yes and no, between consent and resistance, between good and evil. It turns the most complex organ in the universe, the human brain, into a blank slate on which a criminal can write any, even the most monstrous command. And the most terrifying part is that this nightmare literally grows on trees, along roadsides, in the parks of Colombian cities, luring with its deceptive, angelic beauty. But what is happening on the streets today is merely a distant, distorted echo of a much darker and more ancient history. To understand the true nature of this madness, one must leave the noisy, exhaust fume-choked streets of Bogota and travel to the foothills of the Andes, where the humid and heavy air is saturated with the scents of wild orchids, decaying leaves, and damp, rich, fertile earth. It is here, in the half-light of the humid rainforest, under an eternal swirling canopy of fog, that a tree grows which the local people call with reverent terror borrachero, the intoxicating, maddening tree. Its scientific name is Brugmansia arborea, but it is popularly known as angel's trumpets. It is beautiful and deadly at the same time, like the smile of a serial killer, like the kiss of Judas. Large, resembling gramophones or angel's trumpets, flowers of white, yellow, or pale pink hang down, like mourning bells for the souls they have ruined. As twilight falls, when the daytime heat subsides and the air becomes cool and dense, they begin to exude a thick, intoxicating, cloyingly sweet fragrance that spreads over the area like a heavy, almost tangible blanket, attracting hawk moths and repelling sensible people. This scent is so strong and pervasive that it can cause dizziness, nausea, and a severe headache in a person simply passing by. Colombian mothers, from generation to generation, from great-grandmothers to granddaughters, pass down one simple but vital rule to their children. Nunca te duermas bajo un árbol de borrachero. Never fall asleep under a borrachero tree. Legend has it that its fragrance steals dreams, and its pollen accidentally falling on the face of a sleeper can plunge them into an endless, vivid labyrinth of nightmarish, hyper-realistic hallucinations from which there is no return. It is said that the spirits living in the tree take the sleeper's soul for themselves, leaving behind on earth only an empty, breathing, will-less body, a cascaron, an empty shell. Shamans of indigenous tribes, such as the Chibcha, who inhabited these mountains long before the arrival of the greedy, gold-obsessed conquistadors, used the seeds and flowers of this plant for centuries in their most sacred and dangerous rituals, in strictly measured microscopic doses which they determined intuitively. At the risk of their own lives and sanity, it allowed them to communicate with the spirits of their ancestors and travel to other worlds. They knew of its incredible power and respected it immensely, treating it not as a plant, but as a powerful, capricious, and cruel deity that demands sacrifices. They understood that one wrong step, one extra petal in the decoction, one extra second of inhaling the smoke from the burned seeds separated mystical enlightenment from irreversible madness or an excruciating, agonizing death in convulsions. They knew that this was not a plant, but a key that unlocks the gates to another dimension, and these gates could slam shut forever, leaving the unfortunate traveler locked in a personal hell of their own nightmares. For them, it was a sacred guide, not a tool for profit. But the world changed, and the sacred knowledge fell into dirty, greedy hands, which vulgarized and devalued the ancient magic. It is in these delicate, fragrant flowers and tiny, black pepper-like seeds that hyoscine is found, better known in medicine and criminology as the alkaloid scopolamine. Unlike most psychoactive substances, it does not directly stimulate or depress the central nervous system. Its mechanism of action is much more subtle, insidious, and sinister. It is a potent antagonist of muscarinic acetylcholine receptors. In simple terms, it does not build new illusory worlds in the mind. It cuts the wires responsible for recording reality. Scopolamine blocks the action of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, one of the key chemical messengers in our brain responsible for transmitting nerve impulses related to the formation of short-term memory and the process of making voluntary decisions. The victim's brain stops recording what is happening onto its internal hard drive. The person becomes a ghost in their own life. Imagine a film projector. Your life is a film that you are constantly shooting and watching at the same time. The brain continuously records every frame onto the endless film of memory. Scopolamine doesn't tear the film or damage the projector. It simply prevents a new reel of film from being loaded into it. The film is playing, you see the image on the screen, hear the sound, you can even comment on what is happening, but nothing is being recorded. When the substance's effect wears off, a huge, frightening void forms in your film library. You know the screening happened, but you don't remember a single frame. It is this void that is the most terrifying legacy of Devil's Breath. The criminal underworld of Bogota, Medellin, and other Colombian cities didn't reinvent the wheel. They didn't synthesize new, complex formulas in sparkling laboratories. They simply took the ancient sacred knowledge of shamans and turned it inside out, devaluing and vulgarizing it, transforming a sacred plant into an instrument of absolute, utilitarian, banal evil. They understood that they didn't need euphoria, a psychedelic experience, or mystical revelations. They needed only one thing, the simplest and most terrifying property of this plant, the ability to switch off the will. What for centuries was part of secret rituals, accessible only to the chosen and initiated, became a dirty street weapon. Knowledge that had been passed down in whispers by a sacred fire from teacher to student for hundreds of years was now sold for a few dollars in dark alleys and on criminal internet forums in the form of crude, dangerous instructions. Ancient magic was put on the assembly line of street crime, and the consequences were monstrous. What once opened the gates to the spirit world now opened the doors to other people's apartments and bank vaults. The process of obtaining the powder is terrifyingly primitive and deadly for the manufacturers themselves. These are not the sterile laboratories from Hollywood movies, gleaming with chrome and glass. These are filthy, moldy basements in the slums of Ciudad Bolívar, abandoned garages on the outskirts of Medellin, where borrachero flowers and seeds are boiled down in plastic buckets and rusty enamel pots with the addition of caustic, volatile, and incredibly toxic chemicals like unleaded gasoline, acetone, or hydrochloric acid. The air in such clandestine kitchens is saturated with poisonous, suffocating fumes capable of causing severe poisoning, irreversible brain damage, or acute, uncontrollable madness in the chemist himself. They work in cheap painters' respirators that barely protect them, knowing full well that one careless deep breath could make them eternal prisoners of their own hallucinations, turning them from predator to victim of their own product. They fear their creation as one fears a loaded revolver with the hammer cocked, but the thirst for easy money for a quick profit outweighs their animal fear. They are playing Russian roulette with their own sanity. The result of this dirty, hellish alchemy is a fine powder similar to flour or dust with no color or smell. This is devil's breath in its street criminal form. It doesn't need to be injected into a vein or swallowed as a pill, which simplifies its application to the extreme. The methods of its delivery to a victim are insidious and varied. They are designed for complete surprise and are built on sophisticated social engineering and knowledge of human psychology. Criminals have turned poisoning into a true art of deception. The most common and brazen method is to simply blow the powder into the victim's face from a close distance. The person instinctively inhales and within a few minutes completely loses control of themselves. Criminals often stage a whole performance. One of them, usually an attractive girl or a friendly young man, approaches the victim, supposedly asking for directions and showing a map to distract them and make them focus their gaze. At this moment, their accomplice stealthily approaches from the side or from behind and does their dirty work. The victim doesn't even have time to understand anything, feeling only a light puff of air or a fleeting touch on the shoulder. But this breeze carries oblivion within it. Another classic method is to slip the powder into a drink in a bar or nightclub. Scopolamine has no taste and dissolves completely in any liquid, be it beer, wine, or a complex cocktail. The victim calmly finishes their drink, chatting with a new pleasant acquaintance, not suspecting that in 5 to 10 minutes their personality will be temporarily erased and their body will turn into an obedient mechanism ready to execute any command. Criminals often work in collusion with bartenders or waiters who, for a share of the loot, spike the order with the poison, becoming accomplices in a quiet, invisible crime. But there are also far more sophisticated methods, turning the entire city into a minefield. There are also more sophisticated, almost mythical methods whispered about on the streets of Bogota, creating waves of urban paranoia. They say the powder can be applied to a business card, a promotional flyer, or even a magazine page. A person takes it in their hands and then, after some time, instinctively rubs their eyes or touches their lips. This microscopic amount, absorbed through the skin of the fingers and reaching the mucous membranes, is enough for the substance to begin its destructive effect. This legend, whether true or not, has given rise to a real phobia in the city. People are afraid to take anything from strangers' hands, shy away from promoters, and look with suspicion at anyone who tries to hand them a business card. The entire city lives in fear of the invisible touch. The hunters with devil's breath are a special elite type of predator. They are not like aggressive street robbers with knives from whom you can run or defend yourself. Most often they are charming, well-dressed, well-spoken men or women who easily gain trust. They are social chameleons capable of becoming your best friend in 5 minutes. They look for their victims in tourist areas, expensive restaurants, airports, and the lobbies of 5-star hotels. Their targets are lone foreigners, business people on trips, tipsy tourists who have let their guard down. They do not use physical violence. Their weapons are psychology and chemistry. They are puppeteers, and the entire city is their vast puppet theater. But even these cynical predators do not always understand what a destructive and unpredictable force they are playing with. Sometimes, due to the poor purification of the powder from other toxic alkaloids, or simply by mistake, the dosage turns out to be too high. Then the victim does not simply become compliant, but falls into a state of uncontrollable psychosis, accompanied by monstrous, vivid, hyper-realistic hallucinations. There are dozens of documented cases where people under the influence of a scopolamine overdose have gouged out their own eyes, being absolutely certain they were precious stones that needed to be extracted urgently, thrown themselves under cars, mistaking them for mythical creatures from ancient legends, or jumped out of windows trying to fly like birds. They committed unthinkable acts of self-destruction, completely unaware of what they were doing and feeling no pain. In these cases, the criminals simply abandon their broken doll to die on the street. For them, it is merely a cost of production, an annoying hindrance to business. Scopolamine is not just a robbery, it is the most profound psychological violation, a desecration of the very essence of a person, of their soul. To wake up in the morning and realize that your body acted against your will, that you yourself, with your own hands, aided in your own destruction, this is a trauma that lasts a lifetime, like an invisible brand. Many victims suffer for years from severe post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, panic attacks, agoraphobia, and prolonged depression. They lose the basic ability to trust people. It seems to them that any stranger on the street could be that very puppeteer. They begin to fear their own city, their own neighbors, and sometimes even themselves. After all, the most terrifying monster is the one that lives inside and you don't even remember how it got there. Investigating such crimes is practically impossible. It is a legal and forensic dead end. The victim has no memory of the attacker. There is zero evidence at the scene. The criminals, like ghosts, appear from nowhere and disappear into thin air, leaving behind only ruined lives and empty apartments. The Bogota police in most cases throw up their hands. Without the victim's testimony and at least a vague description of the assailants, the case is doomed from the start. This creates a dangerous feeling of complete, absolute impunity in the criminals. They are confident they have created the perfect, traceless crime, but they were gravely mistaken in thinking they were the first to open this dark Pandora's box. The history of scopolamine as a tool for total mind control has its roots in the darkest and most shameful corners of the 20th century. Before the street thugs of Bogota began blowing the powder into the faces of bewildered tourists, the secret services of the world's most powerful and ruthless regimes took a serious interest in this substance. They were not interested in the ability to rob someone of $1,000, but in something far more ambitious and frightening, the creation of a perfect truth serum, an absolute weapon for interrogations. It all began in the laboratories of Nazi Germany, where human life was worth nothing and science served the most monstrous ideologies. The infamous Dr. Josef Mengele, nicknamed the Angel of Death of Auschwitz, conducted inhumane experiments on concentration camp prisoners, trying to find a substance capable of breaking a person's will and forcing them to divulge any information. Among other chemicals, he actively experimented with scopolamine, injecting it into prisoners during interrogations in the so-called Block 10. The results were contradictory and unpredictable. In small doses, the substance did indeed induce a twilight state, relaxation, and increased talkativeness in the subjects, but with the slightest increase in dosage, they would fall into wild delirium, their speech turning into an incoherent stream of consciousness where real facts mixed with monstrous hallucinations, childhood memories, and conversations with deceased relatives. Mengele was searching for the key to truth, but found only the gates to madness. After the devastating defeat of the Third Reich, American intelligence agencies, anticipating a new Cold War with the Soviet Union, launched the secret Operation Paperclip. As part of it, hundreds of Nazi scientists, engineers, and doctors were secretly brought out of defeated Germany, including those who had worked on mind control programs. Their knowledge, their inhumane experience, and their archives formed the basis of one of the most sinister, and immoral projects in CIA history. Project MKUltra. The official goal of the project was the search for and study of means to manipulate a person's mental state, including through the use of psychotropic substances, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and psychological pressure. Scopolamine, with its unique ability to disable the will and erase memory, became one of the main candidates for the role of the mythical truth serum. CIA agents, casting aside all moral principles and laws, conducted secret experiments, often on unsuspecting American citizens, turning their own country into a giant laboratory. As part of a sub-project known as Operation Midnight Climax, the CIA set up safe houses in New York and San Francisco. These apartments were disguised as brothels and equipped with the latest recording equipment and two-way mirrors. Agents hired prostitutes to lure clients and secretly spike their drinks with scopolamine and other psychoactive substances. Behind the mirrors sat CIA officers who, with cold scientific interest, observed the behavior of the drugged individuals and secretly recorded their conversations on tape. They hoped that in a scopolamine-induced trance, people would blurt out their most intimate secrets, state secrets, and the names of contacts. But the results of these experiments left them bewildered. However, like the Nazi doctors before them, they encountered the very same problem, the absolute unpredictability of the effect. The victims either drifted too deeply into a world of illusions, holding conversations with invisible interlocutors, or talking about flying to Mars, or their truth was so thickly mixed with delirium and fantasy that it was impossible to separate one from the other. One of the declassified CIA reports on Project MKUltra contains a devastatingly accurate and cynical phrase. Scopolamine can be effective in eliciting large volumes of verbal information, but we cannot be sure that this information has any relation to reality. The project was deemed unpromising for interrogations. Ultimately, the CIA officially shut down its research into scopolamine as a truth serum, shifting its focus to other, more promising substances, like LSD. But the knowledge gained during these inhuman experiments did not disappear. They understood the most important thing. Scopolamine may not be an ideal lie detector, but it is an ideal tool for erasing personality and temporarily suppressing free will. It doesn't make you tell the truth. It makes you do what you are ordered to do. This was knowledge too powerful and seductive to simply be shelved in an archive, and it, like poisonous seeds, began to seep beyond the confines of secret laboratories, finding its way into the criminal underworld. But to truly feel this horror, one must see it through the eyes of a victim. Imagine a night in Bogota, not the postcard, glossy night shown in tourist brochures, but a real, living and breathing one. The humid, heavy air, smelling of ozone after a brief tropical downpour, mixes with the spicy aroma of roasted corn from street stalls and the acrid exhaust fumes of old, roaring buses. The neon signs of bars and clubs in the prestigious Chapinero district fracture and reflect on the wet asphalt, creating a kaleidoscope of blurred, trembling lights, red, blue, green. Reggaeton music blasts from wide-open doors, mingling with the hum of hundreds of voices and the distant, mournful wail of police sirens. It is a city that never truly sleeps, a city of stark contrasts where behind the wall of a luxurious restaurant, desperate, hopeless poverty can begin, and pristine beauty always coexists with mortal danger. Sophia lived in this city, and this night was supposed to be a celebration for her. Sophia was not a tourist. She was born and raised here in this churning chaos, but had spent the last 5 years in Europe, in the strict and orderly world of a university campus in Madrid. Having returned home with an architecture degree, she was rediscovering her hometown, trying to reconcile her new European habits with the overflowing anarchic energy of Latin America. That evening, she was meeting her school friends at one of the trendy bars that had just opened. She felt completely happy and a little intoxicated, not so much from the couple of mojitos she had drunk as from the atmosphere itself, from the loud laughter, from the feeling of a long-awaited homecoming. She laughed, danced, felt alive, young, and completely invulnerable. And she, of course, did not notice when he appeared at their table, as if from nowhere. He didn't look like a gangster from the crime news. A charming, disarming smile, an expensive, perfectly ironed shirt, a confident, calm gaze. He introduced himself as Daniel, said that he had also studied abroad for a long time, in London, and that he perfectly understood her mixed feelings. He paid her compliments, not vulgar but smart and subtle, noting her taste in clothes, her lively expressions, her knowledge of European cinema. He joked, told amusing stories about life in Europe, instantly finding common topics. He was an ideal, flawless conversationalist who instantly created the aura of being her kind of person, someone who understood her better than anyone else in that bar. When Sophia's friends, citing an early start, began to leave, she, without a moment's hesitation, agreed to have one more cocktail with him. At one point, shouting over the deafening music, he leaned toward her to say something right into her ear. She felt a light, barely perceptible puff of air near her face, as if he had brushed an invisible eyelash from her cheek. She paid it absolutely no mind. It was her fatal, final mistake of the night. A few minutes later, the world began to change. Not sharply, not suddenly, but smoothly, insidiously, almost imperceptibly. The loud, pulsating bass of the reggaeton became distant, muffled, as if coming from under a thick layer of water. The bright, garish colors of the neon lamps dimmed, lost their saturation, became faded and uninteresting, like a washed-out photograph. Daniel's face, who continued to say something, smiling, seemed vaguely familiar and completely alien to her at the same time. She felt no panic, no fear, no feelings at all. In her head, there was only a quiet, detached, emotionless statement of fact. Something was happening. Her own will, her thoughts, her personality did not break under the pressure of the poison. They didn't fight. They simply evaporated. It was as if someone had gone to the main breaker box in her brain and flipped the switch for the self, leaving only the body's basic functions running: movement, speech, hearing. The pilot had left the cockpit, leaving the plane on autopilot. "Let's go, it's too loud in here, I'll walk you," Daniel said, and his voice, which a moment ago had seemed velvety and pleasant to her, now sounded like a command that brooked no argument, like a doctor's voice addressing a patient. And she went. She calmly stood up, took her purse, and obediently, like a child holding an adult's hand, followed him out to the street. She walked beside him through the buzzing night streets of Bogota, past homeless people sleeping on cardboard, past kissing couples, past police patrols armed to the teeth. She saw all of this, but she didn't comprehend, didn't analyze. To her, it was just a moving background, meaningless scenery in a strange film in which she was not a participant, but a passive, indifferent spectator. She didn't remember how they reached the ATM in a dark, poorly lit alley that smelled of urine and rotting fruit. She didn't remember how her own fingers, obedient to his calm, businesslike voice, typed the PIN code on the keypad that she had never entrusted to anyone in her life. She saw the machine whirring as it counted out stacks of bills, how Daniel quickly took them and hid them in his pocket. She just watched. On her face there might have even been a faint, meaningless, submissive smile. He brought her to a cheap, dirty hotel on the far outskirts of the city, in one of those neighborhoods tourists are advised not to enter even during the day. The sharp smell of mold, bleach, and cheap tobacco hit her nose, but her brain didn't process this information as a danger signal. He methodically took her phone, her wallet, and removed the gold earrings from her ears, a gift from her mother for her 18th birthday. She didn't resist. She didn't cry. She just sat on the edge of the creaky bed with its burn-holed blanket and stared at a single spot on the shabby wall where dark stains that looked like blood were visible. In her eyes was an absolute, ringing, inhuman emptiness. For him, at that moment, she ceased to be a person. She was a thing, an animate ATM, a tool. When he had taken everything of any material value, he simply left, leaving her alone in that smoke-filled, hostile room. He didn't even lock the door. Why bother? A doll can't escape because it has no purpose, no will, no desire. Sophia woke up in the morning. Her headache was faint, but nausea was rising in her throat, and her mouth was terribly dry, as if she had been chewing cotton all night. At first, she didn't realize where she was, a ceiling with yellow stains, dirty, stiff sheets, bars on the window, with a view of a solid brick wall. Panic began to set in slowly in waves as her brain tried to piece together the fragments of reality. No purse, no phone, no earrings in her ears. She jumped up, rushed to the door, and ran out into the dim corridor. At the reception desk, a sleepy, unshaven clerk was sitting behind a newspaper. Stammering, she tried to explain to him that she thought she'd been robbed, that she didn't remember how she got here. He just shrugged lazily, not even looking up from his crossword puzzle. "Señorita, you came in late last night with a man. You paid for the room yourself in cash. You looked perfectly normal. You were even smiling." Normal. The word exploded in her mind like a grenade. She had been normal while her life, her dignity, her world were being destroyed. She returned to the room and sank powerlessly onto the dirty floor. And then it hit her. Not a memory. No, her memory was virginally, terrifyingly clean. What hit her was the realization of a total, absolute, inexpressible defilement. Someone had with impunity penetrated her mind, the holy of holies of her soul, rummaged around in there with dirty hands, used her body as a will-less instrument, and left, leaving behind a scorched, desolate land. It was worse than physical violence. It was the rape of her personhood. Sophia sat on the dirty floor of the cheap hotel and wept silently. Not for the loss of money or things, but for the irretrievable loss of herself. And she knew she would never again be able to trust a stranger's smile, never be able to feel completely safe in her own city, never be able to erase from her soul that sticky, disgusting feeling that for one evening she had ceased to be human. The nightmare she couldn't remember would haunt her for the rest of her life. This story is one of thousands repeating with devilish regularity. Behind every dry figure in police statistics lies a similar personal tragedy. A businessman from Germany who woke up in a city park without his passport, laptop, or money, not remembering how he himself gave his company's account information to his abductors. A student from a local university who let a rapist into her own home and even made him coffee before he committed his monstrous crime. An elderly couple who warmly welcomed social workers into their home and voluntarily gave them all their funeral savings accumulated over 40 years. They are all victims of devil's breath. They are all living ghosts wandering the streets with an unhealing hole in their memory and in their soul. And the most frightening thing about this story is that it has long ceased to be a local problem of Colombia alone. The borrachero tree, like other related poisonous plants of the nightshade family, Datura belladonna mandrake, containing scopolamine, grows in many warm regions of the world from South America to India, and knowledge of its properties and the primitive but effective extraction methods are spreading with terrifying speed through the internet, through private forums on the darknet and criminal networks. What was an exotic danger of Bogota yesterday is becoming a global, worldwide threat today. The weapon of the perfect crime has broken free and begun its march across the planet. Cases of scopolamine use have already been recorded in Paris, Rome, Bangkok, and even in major US cities. It attracts not only street robbers, it attracts all who crave absolute power and total control. Imagine the possibilities it opens up for terrorists, for enemy intelligence agencies, for ruthless corporate spies. A person who can be made to carry a bomb into a secure building, divulge a commercial or state secret, incriminate themselves or another during an interrogation, and who will later remember nothing passing any lie detector test. This is absolute power, the dream of any tyrant, embodied in the form of an inconspicuous white powder. Perhaps the sinister experiments of Project MKUltra never truly ended. Perhaps they simply changed their name, went even deeper into the shadows, into the world of private military companies and secret corporate laboratories. The knowledge of how to temporarily switch off human will is too valuable and dangerous to be simply abandoned. And as long as the beautiful and deadly angels' trumpets bloom on earth, there will always be someone who wants to use their poisonous pollen not for communicating with the spirits of ancestors, but for turning free people into obedient puppets. We live in a world where technology allows for the control of information, the tracking of our movements, and the influencing of public opinion through social media. But all of this is merely external, crude tools of control. Scopolamine offers something far more terrifying, internal, total control that penetrates the very essence of consciousness. It does not persuade, break, or coerce. It simply temporarily erases the part of the brain that is capable of doubting, fearing, and resisting. And the next time you are walking down a busy street in an unfamiliar city and someone friendly asks you to show them the way on a map, or a charming stranger in a bar offers to buy you a drink, remember Sophia's story. Remember Matteo, who, with a foolish smile on his face, carried his own television out to meet the robbers. Because devil's breath has no smell, color, or taste, it comes unnoticed under the guise of friendliness, and the most terrifying nightmare is the one you can never remember. The silence in your memory can be louder than any most desperate scream.